I have one more minute till we start. Do we have a quorum? I see Melissa, Leanna.
I don't know who the 940 number is.
Melissa, that's me. It's Rod. I just have it since my computer audio is a little messed up.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm wondering if some other members were thinking it was at 6 or 6:30.
Jason just logged in.
Jason's, there's Dan too.
And Dan.
Ah, perfect. Okay, so if we have Jason and Dan, then he's connecting. So
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing, guys?
all right, I see Jason is connected now, or did he? Yep, he is. Okay. All right, so we have a quorum. I think we're just waiting on DeLeon and Alex.
Alex might not be able to connect. He's on vacation. He was gonna try, but he wasn't sure.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we do have quorum, so I'll go ahead and get the meeting started. So a special meeting of the board of, so I now call into session a special meeting of the Board of Trustees of Little Elm ISD on this date, July 9th, 2020, beginning at 5:01 p.m. Due to the health and safety concerns related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference. At least a quorum of the board will be participating via video conference or telephone call in accordance with provisions of section 551.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that has not been suspended by order of the governor. This special board meeting will be virtual via Zoom, and it will be live streamed on YouTube at Little Elm ISD TV. Okay, so with that, we will call the session into order. And I do the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas,
one state,
one and indivisible. All right. So Ms. Flores, can we do introduction and roll call?
Sure. Not present, Mr. English and Mr. Flores.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have any citizen input?
We do. We have one. It is Dr. Monique Thompson. But she has not called in. I do see a 972 number. I don't know if she's calling from a different number than the number she provided.
Okay.
I'm on the call and I entered. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ms.
Hello?
Thompson.
Okay, then that's her. Go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, I'm on the call. I'm here.
Okay. We hear you, Dr.
Do I need
Thompson.
to go ahead with, I didn't know if y'all finished. Hi, I was just acknowledging that I was chatting. I didn't know if you were ready for the citizen input or.
Yeah, if you're ready, we're ready to proceed with that.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. I just want to, just tell you guys thank you for everything you've been doing over the summer to try to help us get ready for the school year. I did try to reach out to Superintendent Gallagher about parent involvement, and that's my main concern right now, is to see if there's some way that, one, parents can be involved in how we get involved, particularly for the elementary school parents, since I just have an elementary school student now, not high school, but I also reached out to the Texas PTA about a PTA at the high school. It turns out we don't have one. So that's my other concern, is that we have, and I know that Lakeside Middle School PTA is not there because there's going to be the new PTA at the new school. So my concern is about parents' involvement and how parents can be involved in the conversation about parent involvement. My concern is about the lack of two-way communication. I participated in the survey. I know other parents participated in the survey. The question, the Q&A that the district has up, I tried it. I know some other parents tried it, but got redirected to the fact page instead of having a person to talk to. So just want to see if we can get two-way communication set up for parent involvement, one, and two, if parents can be involved in that decision-making. And separate from that, just wanted to also say that I think this decision about the starting the school year a little bit later or whatever to do there, that's another spot where I feel like the parent involvement in a two-way communication would have been helpful for this decision-making process.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson. We'll certainly take all those into consideration.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Flores, any other citizen inputs? Okay. So with that, I guess we'll jump straight on to our action items, starting off with the consideration of approval of the revised calendar. Dr. Mika?
Yes, good morning. Good evening. Sorry, excuse me, President Montemayor, Superintendent Gallagher, and the rest of the board meetings. I am going to share my screen at this time. So you should be able to see my PowerPoint slide deck at this time. Can you see that? Okay, great. So we are coming to you to propose a revision to the 2021 school calendar as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so you should have received in the board book the calendar. I also emailed you the calendar, what it would look like once Ms. Bain finished the graphics on it. And so really when we started talking about this, we had several whys. We didn't start receiving TEA guidance until last Tuesday. We first received the enrollment and the attendance guidance and what funding would look like and how we could count attendance for students that did both in school and at home learning. And really that's the first time that we had heard that we had to send, that we had to provide 100% of our students at home learning if they wanted it. But we still didn't know what that would look like. So last Tuesday, this 2 days ago, we finally got a look at what that at-home learning plan would look like, what the rubrics would look like for the plans that we have to submit. And then we also got the return to school guidance plans on what's required and what is recommended for us to open our schools. And so we had very late guidance coming from TEA. That doesn't mean that we weren't working on developing our own protocols, but we could only work on the protocols based on the CDC guidance. We couldn't work on them based on what TEA was going to require of us, specifically in the areas of instruction, how we were going to teach our students and what that at-home learning needed to look like. We based a lot of our initial protocols that we wrote during the summer on the thought exchange and the input from the community. And so that was very helpful. And we shared that at the last board meeting. And we know that a lot of parents were very nervous about sending their students back to work and what the health and safety was going to look like. But we also knew in terms of at-home learning for those that wanted to keep their students on an at-home learning plan, that it had to be more rigorous and that they wanted more synchronous learning activities. And it wasn't until this past Tuesday that we were able to wrap our minds around what that needed to look like in order to be approved by TEA. We also feel like we need that the original days that were scheduled for back to school week, where we do the teacher professional learning before the students arrived, was adequate in a typical year. But in a year where we are faced with a pandemic that none of us have ever dealt with before, we felt like we needed more training opportunities with our teachers. You know, our staff is hired and they're high quality and they're certified, but they're hired to be in-school teachers. Because they're highly qualified to be in-school teachers doesn't mean that they have the same skill set necessary to be at-home teachers. And with our teachers coming back for the first time on August 3rd, we're at a deficit of time to get them highly trained for the skills needed to meet the requirements of the at-home learning. While we did require some training this summer, especially on the learning management systems, that's just on the technical aspect of how do you run Canvas, Google Classroom, or Seesaw, which are our designated learning management systems. It's not the pedagogy associated with running a at-home learning classroom. How do you, what are some tools that you can use to build relationships with students at the beginning of the year? Because we know how important it is for us to be able to build those personal relationships with students. How do you use the new swivel cameras that we are purchasing to record your lessons? How do you edit a video? How do you post it onto the learning management system? So those are the types of skills that we need to provide our teachers. And we feel that the extra days would help us do that. Also, we, as a result of providing students the at-home learning, our master schedules are pretty much built. But now they're going to have to be revised. So imagine that, you know, Johnny is scheduled for 8 periods at the high school. Well, that's for in school at the high school. So once his parents designate him as being an at-home learner, all of those students' schedules are going to have to be changed, which in effect can change the master schedule based on how we decide we're going to staff the at-home learning. So we need additional days in order to be able to get the master scheduling rearranged. We also need time to plan for staff assignments. Until we get those numbers in for who is going to be committed to at-home learning, we won't know exactly how we are going to staff the at-home learning, as we are not asking for extra FTEs to do so. We are going to do that. We're going to staff those teachers from within our current allotted teachers. And then also comes the development of the at-home learning curriculum in our, for our, and also our in-school LMS. Our teachers need time to develop the lessons for the first few weeks of school, both for at home and because we are asking every teacher to run their learning management system even during in school, so that our students are used to it, and that we can also, if we have a student go out on quarantine, that we will still be able to keep that student engaged for the in-school learning, even though they're at home for maybe 14 days. And so all of these reasons are our whys behind why we feel it is very important for us to adjust our calendar. Not for a later start time for teachers. We still want them to come back on August 3rd. We have just adjusted all of our professional learning days and front loaded them so that we can have that extra time with our teachers. This calendar on the technical side still meets the required 75,600 minutes of instruction required by Texas Administrative Code. It also still allows us to end before Memorial Day, even with the added bad weather days that I've added to the week after the last day of school, which is the 20th. I did put in extra what we're calling bad weather days. Those might be switched over for COVID sick sick days or something, but I did feel like we needed to put on the calendar more than 2 bad weather days this year, because we just simply do not know what the fall or the spring is going to bring. The commissioner has already said that he is not going to give a waiver for missed school days for next year, so that we have to build those into our calendar, and we have to be able to quickly flip the switch from in-school learning to at-home learning for any student if they are quarantined, any campus or class that is having to be closed during the pandemic. Like I said, we would start students on August 25th. We front loaded all of our professional learning days that are scattered throughout the year to the beginning of the year. Another way in order for us to gain those minutes and still end by May 20th is that we had to take away the half day that's typically in December on the 18th. That last day prior to winter break will be a full day. And I already mentioned the extra bad weather days. So it is our recommendation that the board approve the revised LEISD 2020-2021 calendar as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
That's Leanna. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Melissa first. Melissa, was that you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So we have a first and we have a second. Now, do we have any questions?
Yes. I'm going to go first. Okay, so you did go over the why we're using the extra days. We're pulling 9 days. So I've got 3 questions, so I'll try to make them quick. So we're pulling the 9 days. Do you feel the 9 days are actually necessary? Is there a reason we chose all 9 versus an additional 4, you know, like starting the following Tuesday or Wednesday instead of going all the way out? Can you elaborate on that just a little bit, please?
Sure. Yes. So we had extra days built in that were professional learning days. We actually also had extra minutes built in every year. You've always known me to be a very conservative planner for minutes of instruction, right? Because you never know in North Texas what our winter is going to be like. So meeting with our team, we started looking at different modules that we could do, but we also, it's 2-pronged. We have to be able to train the teachers, but we also need to give them time to plan. We want them to have their learning management systems up and running before the first day of school. We also need to have those first teach videos for the teachers that are going to be at home instructors developed. We need time for PLCs so that we have a clear understanding between in-school learning and at-home learning, what it's going to look like so that we're on the same page. So it's not all going to be, you know, professional learning. Some of it is going to be planning time where the teachers are going to be actually working, developing those classes. It's very, very important. You know, as worried as I am about the teachers preparing on the at-home learning side, the majority of our students are going to be involved in in-school learning. But we know that from last year that people are going to come in and out, in and out. We've seen that with our athletic camps this year, and in the news about different people having symptoms of it or getting a confirmed case and then having to be on quarantine. We have to think about next year as 2 separate programs. We have our at-home learners, which we will serve 100% with at home. And then we have our in-school learners. Well, those in-school learners might come in and out of the campus. And so we have to be able to, on the flip of a switch, take one student to online learning, but within the in-school learning platform, which will be the, you know, the Canvas, the Google Classroom. So if I'm a teacher and I have 22 kids, I might have 1 or 2 kids that are out at any given time for a self-quarantine. Not necessarily that we had a contamination at campus, but that they are being quarantined because of something that happened outside of school. And so our teachers have to be prepared for that, both our in-school instructors and our at-home instructors, which is going to take training, but it's also going to take a lot of upfront planning.
Okay. Thank you for that. This should be a quick one. Will the teachers go beyond their contract days with this change?
No, there are 187 days on this.
Okay. And then I do know, I don't know that you can answer this one right now, but some of the teachers are worried. Of course they planned, for their kids to be back in school. Is there anything, any assistance for childcare for any of these teachers? Do we have any type of plans around that? That may be something to address later, but
for school-aged children, I do know that AlphaBest is ready and able to stay open till the 21st for us. And so teachers would be able to put their students in AlphaBest, and they do give us quite a good discount for our teachers.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's it for me, guys.
Tim, this is Deliana. I do have a question. How concerned are we with our teachers being able to handle both, online learning for the students who decide to stay home, as well as for in-class learning? It seems like there's a lot of double work that needs to happen, or there's an additional workload. Or how are we preparing for that?
So until we get those numbers in, and that's why I actually had to, for the first time ever, put a end date for returning student registration for that commitment, because we need to have an idea of how many students want at home in order for us to decide how to staff. The last thing that I want to happen is a teacher to have double duty. If we have a certain number of percentage of students at every grade level, we will actually be able to pull a teacher out of in-person learning and staff them only for at-home learning at the elementary level. And so they wouldn't have to be double duty. But, I'm watching the numbers daily. I send a report to Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Roberts and other key personnel so that we're watching those numbers as they come in, so that we can start having an idea of what that staffing plan might look like. Unfortunately, we're not the only district out there that's having to deal with this. Almost every district is asking their parents to commit. And there's two reasons. Number one, we have to rework our master schedules. And number two, we have to decide how we're going to staff this with our current allotted staff. And so, Mr. English, I'm with you. Don't want any teacher to have to pull double duty. There might be some instances like at the high school, if a teacher has 8 periods in a day, maybe one section is going to be an online section and the other 6 sections will be in person. There might be some of those instances, but at the elementary school, we're watching our numbers to see how we can have a teacher that's dedicated to the online platform all day.
Thank you, Cindy.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have just a couple. So I guess I've struggled with this a little bit this week, just trying to, understand. I think I read through a lot of social media, trying to gather opinions from parents and teachers. So I understand the front loading. I guess the concern I had originally was, we had some of those extra days built in throughout the year that kind of helped, I felt, for if we had to have a closure, if we needed an extra day of cleaning, if, something else came up, we had those extra days to work with. By taking all of those out, we don't. We're, like you said, Dr. Maker, we're front loading that. So I guess I'm a little concerned with that, especially with, some of because I think we're losing 4 full days, 3 half days, and then the 2, so this is the second part of my question, the 2 that are question marks are really the waiver days that we're not sure if those are going to be approved or not. So from a teacher perspective, have we gotten input from at least a majority of our teachers saying that they would prefer to have this in the beginning versus days year. I'd like to kind of understand, are the teachers on board with this? Because we really need to have their opinion, I think, noted as well.
I haven't gotten it from a majority of teachers, no. What I did is I created a faculty forum, and I asked the principals to send me names of representatives for their campus. And so we started meeting. And so I did meet with them, and I did share this when it was a conception with them. And they understood the reasons. It was overwhelmingly in favor of this. I have gotten several, I too have been watching Facebook, but I also know that privately I've gotten quite a few emails of thanks from our faculty, because they are also concerned about how are we going to be prepared for this, and are we going to have time for our lessons? Preparing them effectively? Are we going to have time for, understanding what our master schedule is going to look like, and what, rearranging students' schedules, especially at the secondary level? So while we did not survey the community nor our staff, we did take it to that faculty forum and talked with them about it.
Okay. And then the other question, I think, well, I probably have two more questions. One more was just financially, I believe there is no real impact or additional cost that would be around pushing back the start date.
So last week when I first started discussing this with Mr. Gallagher and our team, I developed like 5 or 6 different calendars, to tell you the truth, different start dates for students. This was actually the earliest start date for the students. Some of them were even as late as after Labor Day, but those were going on each model that I had created. We had the business office, particularly Jesse Weiss, he worked the numbers for us. And so this is the one where we would not take the financial impact. I understand it's going to be a wash, that it's just an accounting accrual. And I believe that's what they noted on the board sheet.
Okay.
If I got that wrong, Jesse, or if there's more explanation.
No, ma'am, that is correct. We essentially just recognize the revenue in a different period than we would have otherwise.
Okay, thank you. The other calendars that we had, that I had developed and put forward, we were going to take there was going to be a financial impact. And so this is one of the reasons why we chose this one. If we could have had more training days up front, I think that's what we would have, liked, but this is the one that we felt was best for our teachers and our students.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with some questions? Okay, I did have a couple questions. If anyone else has more questions, please feel free to chime in. So I think Melissa asked this, alluded to this earlier on, by moving the PL days to the front of the year, it kind of takes away our cushion during the year. And I see that you did add some possible days at the end of May, the week of May 24th, as the possible bleed over if we do need those extra days. With that, why would we not maybe set the end date as May 28th, but have those as rain out days, versus right now having the end date of the 20th and then having those as contingencies? Just in my mind, if I tell someone your end date is later and then I end up giving it to you sooner, that's easier to adjust for than saying, oh, wait a second, we're going to tack on some days at the end of the year. Hopefully by next summer, we're back to where people are able to make vacation plans, et cetera, things of that nature. So was there a thought to that, or a reason why that's not possible?
Mr. Montague, that's a great question. I was having a hard time trying to figure out where to put those and not impact the STAR testing, because the commissioner says we will still be having STAR. And so you typically want your bad weather days after spring break. Because of inclement weather in Texas, we can still get, a few years ago, we got 6-7 inches of snow during the week of spring break. And so typically what you will see districts doing is putting all of those bad weather days after spring break. With 3 weeks of STAR happening, and then the last push on the curriculum prior to that spring assessment of STAR, I didn't want to put them all there, because a bad weather day, unless you use it, counts 0 on the 187 for staff. And so that's another piece, is that no one comes on a bad weather day. And so we
Dr.
just,
Mecca, can I?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Jump in real quick? I want to remind everyone too that the reason this year is unlike any other year, obviously, with the in-school learning model that we have, which is school as we've always done it, but putting those learning management systems in place, so that way, and that's Google Classroom, Canvas, and Seesaw. If we do have truly a bad weather day, we can still have school, and we still will be having school. The reason that we have to put bad weather days in the calendar is because it's a state mandate. So Dr. Mika, will you kind of mention that we really don't anticipate using any bad weather days? And that kind of helps with explaining the reason that those cushions aren't needed. They're really not needed because we will have a system in place that in the event we have to flip the switch, whether we have a COVID outbreak at the district level, whether the county advises us to close down, or obviously a state mandate would require it, we will be using our learning management systems for our in-school learning students. So Cindy or Dr. Mickey, you might want to kind of add to that.
Sure, and you are exactly correct. We have worked very hard on protocols this summer, and one of the protocols that we wrote was our in-school learning protocol. And part of that is, how do we deploy quickly resources necessary on the day that we decide to flip the switch. And last year, that was Friday, February 13th. We had no plans in place to deploy resources. We weren't able to get out extra computers. We weren't able to send home the instructional materials, like the consumables that our elementary students use. And so we have actually written very clear protocols on, if the district closes a classroom or closes a campus for a quarantine, we will be able to begin in-school learning while at home the very next day using our LMSs. And so if everything goes as smoothly as we have planned, by doing some of the pre-work up front in our classrooms, with designating the K-3 computers that we will be sending home, we will be able to not have to use any bad weather days for COVID, and not use bad weather days for bad weather, because we will be able to teach from home as long as we have internet access.
So I guess I'm confused. So we already have 2 bad weather days in there, one in February and one in March. Why even put those last 5 in May if they're not required?
Because I'm very conservative, and while I know that we have done our best planning for the protocols for flipping the switch, as we've been calling it all night, we've never practiced it. We've never been faced with it before, except for one day on Friday, March 13th. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do it without having to take a bad weather day. But I want to be able to not have to come to you you know, on April 15th and say, we don't have enough minutes. We're either going to have to add minutes or we're going to have to add another day of instruction. I'd rather that our families know up front that we're not planning to use them, but that they're there in case we have to. We have never been faced with a pandemic like this before. And I'd rather plan for the worst and hope, you know, hope for the best.
So that does lead me to question. So we are preparing for if we need to go to an at-home to completely at-home learning, that we can do that from one day to the next. But I'm thinking, does that also mean that teachers, is that with the expectation that teachers would still be in the classroom, but just the kids are home? So the teachers still have all their materials and everything in the classroom? Or that the teachers, in the case of a bad weather day, if you can't get into campus, are they going to have at home all that they're going to need to deliver that material at home as well? So, is it going to really be possible to not lose a day in a bad weather situation?
Yeah, and that's a great example. You know, one of the things that we have been practicing, because as you know, we returned to work in our offices, and you'll see several of us, our backgrounds are our offices right now. So we've been back at work since June. And we have been practicing this on a regular basis of making sure that we are taking home with us what we need in the evenings. And so, you know, not all of our instructional materials, but we're at least making sure that we're taking home our computers every night, because all of our teachers are issued a laptop. And we have been practicing that ourselves here in the curriculum and learning office. Making sure that we have what we need in case we weren't able to come back in the next day for whatever reason. So that's one of the things that we'll be emphasizing with our teachers is, hey guys, you know, we know you're having to unplug your computers, but at least make sure that you're getting your laptops home with you, so that if there is a situation that happens quickly that we aren't able to return to campus the next day, we can try and provide that at-home learning. The good thing is that if we are if we are using a learning management system with the new attendance rules in Texas, and I'll have to go over them in detail later unless you want me to do that tonight. We're able to take attendance 3 ways. One way, in person, present. Another way, in person, synchronous, which means that for the entire school day, the students have to be live and engaged with a teacher, or present asynchronous. And for that, we're going to have to turn in a plan that's approved by TEA that is that we are building our lessons a day at a time to where we can tell that the students are engaged. When we train the teachers in the fall, that's going to be our big push with our in-school teachers, is that they are preparing their week's worth of lessons. Think about it as a week lesson plan. We used to turn those in on Friday before we went home. Instead, we'll be asking them to prepare their lessons on their LMS, so that at any time a student can do the in-school learning while at home. And so, David, I know that kind of took a long way around to answer that question, but we're hopeful we won't have to take a bad weather day.
Yeah.
They're there just in case.
Yeah. Again, I'm sure that'll be something that a lot of teachers will ask questions about, and, you know, how do they develop that, have their go bags essentially at the end of each day. Another question I have, just in terms of right now, we're asking parents to commit or to sign up for their preference for an at-home model versus an in-school. And you just explained that even going in school in person, there's still this LMS model to where they can have that delivered at home. Will kids be able to switch between an at-home model to an in-school model? I mean, are they able to? Will they be allowed to? I mean, are they going to be able to flip back and forth? I mean, how is that going to work on, one, setting up our numbers ahead of time, but 2, it seems like it's going to be 2 different delivery models.
So yes, they will be able to switch back and forth at the 9 weeks grading period. And so that is one of the things that the commissioner has set aside for us. was that we had to be able to we couldn't have students stay in one learning system more than 9 weeks if the parent chose for them to go to a different one. So if I chose at-home learning for the start of school, I would stay in that for the first 9 weeks, and then I would be able to switch to in-school learning for the next 9 weeks. But the reason why we would do that is we want to make sure that we're not intentionally causing gaps with kids coming in and out by choice. I can't promise that we are going to be day by day lockstep between in school and at home because of the nature of it. We might be a day behind one or the other, depending upon the how we decide to do the at-home learning. Okay, so they will be able to do that. The other thing is that it's in the FAQs that went up today, the at-home learning FAQs. The webpage has even more information on it as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon. But one of the questions, the very last one I believe, was you're asking me to commit awfully early before the start of school. I don't know what's going to happen in the next month. Do I have the opportunity to change my commitment? And yes, you do. The commissioner says that up until the second week before the start of school. So up until the start of school is the 25th. And so up until August 10th, parents will have the opportunity to change their mind between at school and in school. And so I have asked Mr. Thompson, our programmer for Focus, to figure out how that can be done since we took the commitment through registration. And he is working on building that new script in our student information system, and also developing the instructions for the parents so that they will be able to change that designation up through August the 10th. So
I was also wondering, how's it going to work will the child be able to participate in extracurriculars and have an at-home model?
That's what I was asked too.
Yes, and so the commissioner in the attendance and enrollment guidelines that he released last week, that does address that, and we've also included that in our FAQs. But we will not be providing transportation to those activities. So, for example, if you are in baseball, and baseball, you're a freshman, and baseball meets 6th period, you're expected to be at 6th period class in school, in person. So your parents will need to bring you for 6th period class. And then you will also need to come back for after school practice. So, football, I think for freshmen meets 4th period or 5th period, I can't remember. And so the parents would need to bring them up for that class because we have to take attendance. And so a student in any given day can be counted for asynchronous present for 1st, 2nd, 3rd period, in school present for 4th period, and then asynchronous present for 5th, 6th, 7th period. And that would allow them to still participate in UIL activities, etc. But those would by default have to be in person for the course.
Yeah. Hey, David, I had a question. Not a question or more of a comment on that one. With the sports, because it just seems to me it'd be a little bit unusual if a parent says, "Hey, I want my student to do remote learning, but I do want my student to participate in sports." So I don't know. I guess it's just something to give a thought behind. And so, just to make sure I understand clearly, what you're saying is you have to select whether or not you want to be home or remote. In a 9-week period, you can't switch in and out unless you caught the virus. Is that correct?
No, they still wouldn't switch to the at-home. See,
well, they would switch. Cindy, they would switch to at-home for
you
that
would be able
period
to
that they're
switch to online learning for in-school using but you would keep your same teachers. We wouldn't move you to the at-home learning teacher.
Okay, so you wouldn't go to the at-home platform for those 2 weeks. Once the 2-week period is up, you're good, then you come back into in school.
Correct.
I have a question on a little different, it's the same topic. It's more on the laptop. So are we good to move, or does anybody else have questions on that one before I take us a different route? We're good? Okay. You were talking earlier about taking your laptops home, kind of being prepared for stuff. And that kind of made me think, oh, great. So a lot of our students had their laptops over the summer. We have issues with some of those, maybe getting new students their laptops. Is this going to hinder any of that? I mean, do we still have a plan for that? I mean, kind of what's the guide for people that had it and people that need to get them?
Yes, we do have a plan. Our digital learning and Clay Walker's team for technology have been working on how that distribution is going to occur for 4th through 12th grade students. And so they are also working on a plan for how they will fix the computers for those students that choose the 100% at home remote learning. And so there is a plan. We even have a plan for by the end of the second day of school, being able to tag all of those computers in K through 3 that are going to stay in the classroom, but designated them for a single student use. Okay. So that they can quickly, so that every one computer is only used by one student throughout the day, but then also that they can quickly be sent home in a go bag.
Good. Okay.
We do have plans for all of that.
Oh yeah, it's not like you guys haven't made plan A through Z so far, but no, it made me think about that. And I know we've got kids who had laptops who might have issues that they haven't been able to fix since the end of last year, and so that it kind of prompted that one. And I know some parents are probably curious about that one.
Well, and I think that I believe that technology asked everyone to put in those help tickets so that they could start working on those. But I will check with, I've written that down, and I will check with Mr. Walker on that and verify that that's what's happening.
And Dr. Mika, and Dr. Mika, I just want to say you've done an awesome job answering these questions. We will be bringing, in fact, today, I believe, Mr. Roberts sent the entire board, the protocols that we've been developing and working on, because I know a lot of these questions aren't necessarily related to the calendar, but are related to the overall process that we're putting in place to bring kids back in a safe manner. So we certainly can answer more of those questions, but I did want to just ask David if he could ask, or President Montemayor, if he could ask if there's any more questions related to the calendar.
Okay, I did have one last question related to calendar. Some districts have actually pushed up start date, right? I mean, I've read several articles on it. I meant to write the actual districts down, but I didn't today. But I know some have. Now, I get the theory there being that because the likelihood of having to go home is so great, they want to get as many in school days as possible. So I'm wondering, if our districts that are doing that, are they not doing any at-home stuff, or are they trying to avoid doing any at-home stuff, or how are some districts able to get started early, whereas we're asking for a delay?
I think that the districts that jumped on the what we're calling the intersessional calendar, where you're starting early and then you're having longer breaks throughout the year, that was all before we got the guidance from TEA. Even though TEA was pushing the adoptions of those calendars, we didn't know that this at-home learning was going to be an option. Mm-hmm. And so there's really not a need for the intersession if everyone can be taught from home at any given time, because we are now allowed 3 attendance factors. We don't have to be all in the same building for attendance to be counted for ADA. And so I can't tell you why the districts went that way, but I don't know. I'm not sure of any up in the North Texas area that did that. Not that I've heard of, and not that I've spoken with superintendents in Region 11.
Yeah, I thought one was El Paso. I don't know if it was El Paso ISD or Isleta ISD, or and then I thought the other was Austin, but but I'm not sure. That's what sticks in my head. But
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, any other questions related to the calendar?
I think this is not really a question, but I guess, I think that the concern I still have is one, and we know this is a fluid situation, but I think one, we put out 4 or 6 weeks ago that we were not going to change our approved calendar. So I know that I've had some parents reach out and say, well, now we're going back on that. And obviously times are a little different than they were 4 weeks ago. So I do get that. I wish we would have maybe said, as of right now, if things stayed stable, we would stay the course, or just kind of put that out a little bit differently. Just a few things that I would like to see is, based on the calendar, and this is maybe just food for thought for next time, is when we're making these kind of changes, I would love to see more survey related, teacher related, staff related feedback and parent related feedback, because I feel like a lot of this, obviously this affects everybody. So these extra 9 days, this is pushing, parents to have to stay home later with their kids or find different daycare or, different things like that. So I know it's a challenge for everybody. But I would just love to see that we actually, surveyed some families and give, I think this is going back to Dr. Thompson's point, give our parents and our staff and the people that work in the district a voice. Let them at least, have some input on what we're doing and what decisions we're making. Because right now I kind of feel like as a board, we're making a decision. Obviously it's the best one we can make today based on what's going on. But at the same time, we just don't have a lot of feedback from others that are actually working in it and doing it. So that's my only comments on it. I think you are doing a great job, Dr. Mecca. I don't envy you at all, because I know this is challenging for everybody that's having to make these decisions. Just something to think about in the future, is to really, if we can, get more feedback from our constituents, our parents, and our staff, so we can make better decisions based on that input.
And let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick on that. And I agree completely. And I understand. And obviously working with the community and communicating, we do put out a lot of communication. But this is, and Melissa, you just mentioned it a second ago. This is such a fluid situation, being in the middle of a pandemic, getting more information. And Dr. Mickey, you might want to jump in. We just received guidance yesterday from TA. So, with it being a fluid situation, a month ago, we didn't see the number of cases that we have now. We have, and Dr. Mecca, just kind of jump in about the guidance that you've received from TA that these additional days are absolutely needed. And I'm all for community surveys, but when you're in a mission critical time where you've got to make decisions quickly, to meet the needs of our kids and to keep our teachers, students safe, and to prepare our teachers for this, we can put out surveys all day long, and you're going to get some people that are for it, some people that are against it. And that's the difficult part of being leaders, being in these positions where sometimes we do make decisions that people are not going to like and not appreciate. But at the end of the day, we've got to make decisions that are best for our teachers and our students first and foremost. But I do understand your point very much. I, value that. But at the end of the day, when we're getting information from TEA as of yesterday that we still are working through to make sure that we can offer the online learning, and looking at the rules that they're putting in place now, we didn't have that information 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Dr. Mickey, you might want to jump in and just mention some of those rules, or at least
Actually, if Dr. McKay, I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do have a question that I've been waiting pretty patiently to pose a couple of questions here, but I do have one regarding this, and this is primarily for Superintendent Gallagher and Mr. Roberts. We had our committee meeting last Thursday, right about this exact same time. During that meeting, there were actually only 3 of us involved. Unfortunately, Mr. English and Miss Harding were not able to attend. But during that meeting, the possibility of delaying the opening for 2 weeks was not brought up at all. And this is Thursday evening, but then 2 business days later on Monday, we get the request to extend the calendar and extend start date. I was curious as to what happened in that 1 business day for this to come about. I mean, were there additional guidelines that came down? Was there additional information that was brought up? I mean, I'm just curious as to what was the situation, because since it was not mentioned on Thursday night.
Well, and honestly, it's the pandemic, Mr. Blackwood. And speaking with Denton County, and again, I don't want to speak for other school districts, but you will see in the next day or 2 other school districts very close to us delaying their start as well and matching our calendar. It comes down to the pandemic, it comes down to information that's coming to us. We didn't have enough information in front of us that night to share it with you. You know, so that's the bottom line there. But I do understand, you know, and I want to go back to Dr. Mecca to give her a chance to explain. A lot of this comes down to TEA, the lack of information, the lack of guidance that we've received from them. I want to be careful not to, you know, push the blame on them, because I know Commissioner Morath is doing the best job he can do. He's holding meetings twice a week with superintendents across the state, but it's very difficult. You know, we're in the middle of this pandemic. Information is coming in a almost a quilt pattern. We're getting information from the federal government that sometimes doesn't align with what we're getting from the state, which doesn't align with what we're getting from Denton County Health. So we're doing our best trying to pull all of that information together to provide the safest possible environment to bring our teachers and students back, on top of trying to develop an online school in a matter of weeks when we literally just received guidance yesterday. So Dr. Mecca, you might want to jump in.
Sure. We only meet with the commissioner every Tuesday and Thursday. And Mr. Gallagher has allowed me to be a part of all of those commissioner calls since the pandemic started. At the beginning of the pandemic in March, during spring break, we were meeting every single day with the commissioner. And that lasted for about 7 weeks. And then after that, we moved to only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we're not getting information from TEA except on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so while the initial attendance and enrollment information came out on Tuesday, June 30th, it wasn't until July 3rd, which I believe was that, or July, y'all help me with whatever that Thursday was. It's all running together now, but it was on Thursday. So if he introduces it on Tuesday, then we all have the opportunity to post questions in the Zoom chat, and then TEA will respond to all of those questions the following Thursday, the following day, and will then add to the FAQ. So what started as a very brief document is now just for attendance, how to take attendance and how to count ADA for our students, is now over 21 pages long. And so that has grown just since the Tuesday that this was introduced. And so we get information from TEA on Tuesday and Thursday. Today was the first time that we got a remote instruction handbook from them, guidebook from them. So I haven't even had time to read it. He just showed it on his screen, and now I have to go and download it and read it. And so here it is Thursday, and we've got to be able to adapt before next Monday when I meet with cabinet and the staff to about what's in that guidebook. And so things happen quickly as information is being released. And I think as more information is being released from TEA, we're going to be pivoting in one direction or a next, kind of how we did at the beginning of the pandemic, because as they are establishing their rules, we're having to match them up to the protocols that we've written and then change our protocols to match their requirements.
Any additional questions or comments?
I do have one additional comment, and Daniel, thank you for clarifying that. And please believe me, I wasn't trying to question the motives behind this. Believe me, I understand, and I've expressed this to you and Mr. Montemayor on several occasions that I understand that we're doing the best that we can as a district. You guys are doing the best you can as administration, and appreciate that tremendously. And I've been very vocal in my basically stating how surprised I am on how far ahead of the game we obviously seem to be. So I do not mean any of my comments to be taken in negative light.
And Mr. Blackwood, we know that you've done an awesome job. And just real quick shout out to not just, I mean, all of the board, but especially the three that have served on that COVID committee, because it has helped us. You've provided some feedback. So no, you guys are great. And, you know, this is an unprecedented situation for all of us. And, you know, all of us working together, it's really helping us move things forward.
I would like to still reiterate essentially what Dr. Thompson said earlier and Ms. Myers said earlier. My main concern is the fact that during this whole time, we really have not allowed the voice and the voice of our community, our staff, parents to reach out to us during these times. I've kind of asked for it a few times previously, and I initially have a very hard time agreeing to this without having those voices be allow them to be heard. Believe me, I do agree with the extension. I think it is a very valid, there's a very valid reason for it. And I think that it would be very beneficial to our staff in order to do so, to get the additional training and to be able to plan for synchronous, asynchronous, or a combination thereof, depending on what happens with individual students. I just do have that very, very large concern of not hearing from the community during this entire process. Some of us have asked for that input, and it really has not been made available. And we do have the FAQs out there. So that is really kind of my main, if you want to say, gripe or complaint during this entire time, is that avenue has not been made available to the community to comment specifically on everything that's going on and ask questions. We've done a great job putting FAQs out there. We have. But as a board, if you guys have been getting inquiries, those inquiries have not been forwarded back to us for us to be able to take a look at and take into consideration when these decisions are being made. And that's kind of my main issue, is not being able to have the ability of seeing that community input if it's been made available. So.
Yeah, and Mr. Blackwood, no, yep, actually, it's a great point, valid point. And, you know, same thing with Mrs. Myers' point, very good point. But, you know, as I said, this is one of those situations, because it is so fluid so quickly. I understand this is not a typical calendar that we would normally, this is not our typical calendar process that we go through. This is more of an emergency type of situation, which is why we called for this special board meeting, because we do need to move quickly and get this moving forward for our teachers. And ultimately it's for our teachers. But I would like just to address community input and teacher input just for a minute. And I would like to ask either Mr. Roberts or Dr. Mika to kind of talk about the things that we have done, the things that we will be doing. You know, we have to remember, teachers are not on contract right now. Principals are not even on contract. So, you know, we do know how important it is to get input from teachers, which I do want to applaud Dr. Mika for putting together that teacher committee. But if either Mr. Roberts or Dr. Mika would just kind of mention briefly some of the things that are coming out next week, as quick as next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. And for starters, you know, some of that information was sent out through Thought Exchange. And I don't know, you know, if we use kind of like a, you know, a fancy term for a survey, and that gets kind of overlooked. But we have received and we have sent out surveys compiling some of that information from our faculty as well as our community. So we have some of that information, but valid points and things that we need to look at. And like Daniel said, you know, we are in mission critical, and some of this is not our standard protocol of getting out a calendar, so on and so forth. So it is kind of an emergency situation. But to move forward, even as today, we put together some really key things to start down that road of really getting this information out to not only our staff and our employees, but our constituents as well, the community. And so the first thing is, it starts Monday. We are meeting with our administrators to start training them so that they are now on contract. They will start in return training their staff, our teachers, and getting that input and getting that collaboration out to them and with them. So that's one step. The other step is that I have sent out invitations to all of our class members, our 2020 cohort, which is about 43 community members. And that is a meeting that I have set up along with Superintendent's Cabinet Wednesday evening, getting that participation from those community members through that lens. And then also, we had a great idea today and got information out where we will conduct two basically faculty meetings or staff meetings for all of our employees. Tuesday, which you guys got that information as well, because through the LEISD ML email, but we'll have it at 9 and 12 on Tuesday. Plus, we will record that so it's accessible to all of our staff members. So those are a few steps. And then Cindy, you might want to mention something about, you know, the teacher group that you put together that met this Monday.
Sure. We have a little bit over 20 teachers, faculty members that we're meeting with. I was able to review the protocols with them that you saw today. I didn't want to even attempt to start putting into answering the FAQs until I had passed those by our teachers and see a lot of them had some great suggestions for them. And so we actually started revising quite a few of our protocols based on the questions and comments that the teachers had. And then we were able to take a round of questions from them that we're now working on other protocols for that, you know, we hadn't thought about from a teacher's point of view. And so we had representation there from early elementary, middle school, high school levels. We had fine arts teachers, we had CTE teachers, gen ed teachers, special ed teachers, specialists, and bilingual teachers as well. And so we were able to have a very wide range of teachers represented on this committee that the principals put forward. We had more names. Those emails are still out there. I keep sending them. I know some of our teachers are probably on vacation and maybe not checking their emails. And so we have another faculty forum scheduled for early next week to go over some of the changes that we're making, some of the ideas. I also want to run by them some of the different ideas for the at-home learning, the 100% at-home learners. And share with them some of the numbers that we have coming in and get some feedback on some of the ideas that Curriculum and Learning has for what that at-home curriculum should look like and how we start attacking getting that written. It's hard for us to write curriculum when the teachers aren't on contract. And so, as you know, we're in stage 3 of our curriculum development, and we had the money set aside for that. And we've been working steadily almost every day on that. But now it's time for us to start focusing on that at-home curriculum.
And Dr. Mika, also too, we don't want to leave out HR. And Ms. Brown is here with us. And I know she is currently working on a survey. So would you like to mention that as well? Ashley?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. So we want to make sure that our staff knows that their opinions and their feedback and their input are valuable. And just imagine a capital LE at the end of valuable. And so we are definitely going to fill out, we're drafting and crafting questions now to send out like a Survey Monkey type survey to all of our staff members. And we're going to try to put in place some extra measures to get feedback from staff members that don't typically have access to necessarily computers and sign-ins. So, some of our auxiliary staff, we're trying to think of ways to make sure that we get their opinions and feedback as well. But so we're in the process of drafting those questions because it is important that we have everyone's voices at the table when making decisions about reopening and returning to work and what that looks like. So that is in the works and should be going out to staff within the next week or so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? All right, so all those in favor of approving the new calendar as presented and discussed by Dr. Mika? I see yes from Melissa, Jason, Leanna, Dan, and DeLeon as well. Okay, so it's everyone's a yes. Everyone that's present is a yes. The motion passes. All right, thank you very much on that. Now we do also have, sorry, going back to my agenda. So we have the consideration of approval of capital outlays. Mr. Reeves?
Sure, Mr. Montemayor, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Gallagher. The administration is seeking the approval of funds for the purchase of equipment and supplies due to the COVID virus. Now, remember, this is in addition to the steps we've already been taking since earlier the start of this year, continuing, the cleaning, the new HVAC units that we're installing throughout the district with bipolar ionization. And so, as Mr. Gallagher stated earlier, there's a list of everything that we're doing. So I'm not going to spend time going through all of that, but we do have a exhaustive list of everything that we're doing on the operational side to make sure that students and staff and our constituents are safe. But specifically tonight, we're looking at adding, and I believe Dr. Mika has, or Sonia has provided you a kind of a budget breakdown of what we're requesting. And so we're looking at adding some student desk shields. And I believe she has a picture that she can show you. And this is a shield that each student will have at their desk that's like 21 inches tall and 20 inches wide, that can be collapsible and foldable. It's easily moved from one place to another if we need to. Also, we're looking at face shields for our instructors. And so that comes in about a little over $175,000. We're looking at water bottle fillers. These are kits that can be installed on our existing water fountains to where we can have students can fill their own water bottles up and staff in lieu of using the water fountains. That includes the bonds and insurance. Since it's over $25,000, we have to have that payment bond. And so that includes the bonds and insurance. We're looking also at student and instructor face masks. These will be these will actually be scarves that can be used to place over your nose and mouth, and they have the Little Elm logo on them, each of them, different colors for students versus instructors. And finally, we're looking at office sneeze guards. And what these are just plexiglass shields, kind of like you see maybe going into a bank or a restaurant. You'll have these in between you and the person you're talking with. And so we're looking at these at our AP's offices, our front desk, and things like that. So totaling all those up. And then again, these include our bonds and insurance and a little bit of contingency, looking at $316,207. And so the administration is recommending that the board approve the COVID equipment and supplies as submitted and authorize the superintendent and their designee to finalize final contracts. So on that, I'll answer any questions.
Well, first, do we have a motion to approve these items as presented by Mr. Reeves?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Blackwood. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, by Jason. All right, now who's got questions?
I got a question real quick. I thought I recall seeing an article or announcement somewhere where the state is going to be sending supplies, such as the face mask, et cetera. So are these in addition to that? Are we going to be reimbursed for possibly part of this because we're purchasing our own? Just any kind of guidance on that, I mean, we still probably need extra face masks because people are going to forget them, but I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing versus what the state, I think, is providing us.
Yeah, the state will be providing. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Mika.
Do you want me to take that one?
Sure, you can take all of them.
Oh, no, sir. So the face masks.
No, go ahead.
The face masks here, they're really not face masks, they're face coverings, because we know how uncomfortable the face masks are behind your ears. And
right,
so
I understand that they kind of go over your heads, and they're the scarves go all the way down. So I'm fine with that. But what I'm just saying is, I know what the state's probably providing us is just what I'm going to call the blue.
It's the paper, the blue paper disposables. Yes.
Right. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there anything we can do to either be reimbursed for possibly part of what we're doing instead of receiving from the state, or are we just going to have that we're going to have this in addition to what the state's providing us?
We'll have these in addition to what the state's going to be providing. And so, like Dr. Mika said, for those face masks, these are more of our logos on them, and they're scarves versus the other mask. And so,
right, and I'm all for that. Trust me, I'm all for that. I think that's much better. It's more comfortable. I'm fine with that. I'm just trying to figure out cost-wise, because I see we've got shields. Is in that state allotment, are they giving us any type of shields or anything also, or was it just the face masks?
No, Jason, and let me jump in real quick. Those are good questions. No, that was not the only thing in that allotment regarding the face or face coverings are those blue paper disposable face masks. Okay. Which again, we have more information on that. We'll be using those on the buses. Unfortunately, and as you know this, the CARES Act funds that we were to receive, which would have been approximately $460,000 for Little MISD, we are not receiving that due to the state, their decision in how they're using that money. So school districts are not receiving the CARES Act funding. I know Jared Patterson, our representative, has done a great job trying to get that turned around for us, but unfortunately we don't have any additional funds coming from that.
Okay, all right.
So I guess so my question with that is, so I can just imagine half of our kids are going to leave these gators at home every day. Mm-hmm. A quarter of the rest of the other half are going to lose them within the first week. So, I mean, how many of these masks are each kid going to get? What are we going to have on site for when kids forget their masks? Things of that nature. Where is this required versus recommended?
So, Mr. Montgomery, that's a great question. So, we'll have enough at the start for these scarves for them. And, like we said, we'll have additional masks for them, those blue masks for those that may have forgotten them. But it's going to be, I know that my kids don't always remember everything. And so I can see how they might forget a mask. And so we'll have to have some on site for those that don't have those as well. And so, and I don't know, Dr. Mika, if you want to chime in as well, but we're going to have to provide some additional masks for them if they forget those.
Yeah,
they are required.
These, we're going to give every student and staff member one of these gaiters. And then we're also allowing them to bring their own face covering as long as it's school appropriate, graphic wise. But the PPE that the state's giving us, the disposable masks, we're planning on distributing those to our buses for students that forget, because students will be required to wear a face covering on our school buses, because we will not be able to social distance on them. And then they will also be able to, students 10 years and up will have to wear a face covering while on school, in our school buildings. And so we will use those blue disposable masks for those students that do forget.
So I guess my question to that with David would be, why are we not making this almost part of student code where this is part of the dress code. That if you're not meeting the dress code, you get sent home. I mean, because I'm with David a little bit on this one, in that the students need to take responsibility and make sure they're bringing something of some sort, because otherwise I could see us running out of all the state issue face masks in the first half of the year, and then we as the district are going to be responsible providing them for the second half, which is going to be a pretty tall cost depending upon, you know, timing and everything else. And to me, I would think this needs to be part of basically the dress code. I don't know how anybody else feels. That's just the way I feel. Because this is safety, safety for not only staff, but for other students and health concerns that they need to be responsible in bringing this.
Well, for one, this is really coming down from the mandate from the governor, right? I mean, if he changes the executive order, that changes everything anyway.
Right, which Melissa, I understand that. But as far as we know right now, face masks are covered. Face mask coverings are required. So to me, that's kind of like the dress code. You got to have one.
So the question I had though around that, so 10 and under, so basically our elementaries are no face masks primarily. Fifth grade is what, 10? Are they 10?
Yeah,
okay.
10, 11, pretty
10,
much.
11.
Yeah.
So really K through 5, this is really a middle school and high school issue, right? Okay. Obviously our teachers at K through 5, our staff, they'll have face coverings, but the students won't.
Correct.
Okay.
And if a student in K-5, of course, wants to wear one,
right,
we are highly recommending it. We
right.
Just, because of the governor's order, we can't require it.
Yeah,
right,
Dr. Mickey, also, but we are purchasing them for every student, correct?
Correct. We got little ones. We got small sizes for the littles.
Right. I think, Melissa, to your point, you know, they've got to have one. I mean, or to Cindy's point a little bit, the little ones have got to have one on the bus if they're riding the bus, and that's fine for them to have a blue one or whatever. But it's just actually in the school for the older kids. To me, that should be, you know, part of the dress code at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks that.
No, I got cut off. Sorry, guys. Mine was, is this temporary or is this going to be permanent for the year? And that's where the policy part comes in for me.
Yeah, because I think that's the gray area right now. I'm assuming, you know.
I'm thinking 1 month that these things are gone.
Well, but I mean,
I'm sorry. Go
that's
ahead,
my point.
Jason.
Is as long as it's mandated by the state. I mean, however we want to caveat it, as long as it's mandated by the state, then I think we need to make sure that people are abiding by it when they're all in the facility, and they need to be responsible.
Yeah, Jason, yes, and Jason, you're 100% correct. Because this is an order by the governor, we as a district don't have a choice to not follow that. So 100% you're correct. If a student doesn't have one, we don't have a choice. They have to have one. So, and I also understand what Melissa and Leanna are saying too, because it may be different in a month. It may be different in 2 months. Who knows? You know, we all thought this pandemic was going to die down this summer. I, for one, thought it was going to be gone, but as we see, it's increased dramatically. So we don't know what the future holds, but as of right now, Jason, you're correct, because it is a mandate. Students don't have a choice. If they don't have one, they have to have one. That's just the way it is.
Okay, then to that end, I mean, the uncomfortable question, I don't know if anyone really wants to ask. Do we allow them in the building, or do we have someone if we're doing the temperature checks like CDC's requesting or guidance, do we have people at the entrances saying no face mask, sorry, you can't come to school today?
Yeah, and Dan, that's exactly right. That is something that's going to be the way it is. If it, and you know, there's going to be new regulations coming out. We know this. But based upon the information that we have now, just as, you know, and we can get a fine. There is a system in place right now that if I walk into Lowe's or Home Depot without a face mask, you know, I get a warning, but then if I continue to do it, I can be fined. So unfortunately, that's the situation we're in, and we're going to have to abide as a district by the governor's orders.
Oh, I appreciate it. I just wanted that question to be asked point blank. I mean, because that's the one thing that had not been said during this entire conversation yet. Out of all of our questions, is it is mandated and the kids are going to be required to do it, then do we allow them in the school or in the building if they don't have one? That's my, and I guess if that is the case, then we need to make sure that that is communicated, to the nth degree, because we will have kids showing up every single day without them. So we just need to make sure that that is abundantly clear to anyone and everyone.
Well, and I'm sure the board may know this. UIL just came out with a ruling as of, my days are running together. I'm not sure if it was yesterday or today, but even summer workouts, students participating must wear a mask, a face covering. So, because of the governor's orders, it really, it makes it difficult for all of us, but on one hand, it's difficult, but the other hand, we don't have a choice. We've got to follow whatever the executive order is from the governor.
The only other question I had is around for the supplies. Are we getting additional thermometers for every campus?
We have 58 thermometers coming from the state in our PPE order. So yes, they will receive the thermal scan thermometers as part of that PPE state order that we should be arriving probably by mid-August.
So that's only a few per campus then.
That's if we have 9 campuses, so that's a little bit more than 5 per campus.
This is Deliana. The one question I have is just a little bit around some of the face masks that we're looking at. Are those the regular small blue medical face masks? Is that right, or what kind of face masks are there?
Talking about the ones we're providing daily on, or the ones we're getting from the state?
The one we're purchasing here.
No, the ones we're providing are the full scarf ones that go over your head. They're like all the way down to your neck.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, they're like the ski gaiters.
Okay. And then the question I have for you is, are we putting guidelines on what face masks we are going to allow in school?
On what?
Yeah, are we putting guidelines around what face mask, if people bring their own face masks, are we putting guidelines on what's allowable in school, or?
Yes, I believe in the FAQ, I pretty much locked it almost completely down, to tell you the truth. And so I believe, and I'll have to go back and check it, but I believe that we talked a lot about this, but I believe what's written there is that they can either wear our LE face mask or a plain face mask with no graphics, unless it is a college or university emblem.
Okay.
And just to go back, the UIL ruling that the face coverings, yes, they have to have them when they get there, but not working out. Just FYI, it's not when they're actively exercising.
Yeah, it's again, and agreed, Melissa, you're correct on that, but it's just another example of how these, the governor's executive order is starting to impact, not just us, but our kids. And I do hope, Leanna, you're correct that in a month we're going to see things different. That's my hope.
And the water bottle fillers, I guess the add-ons to the current water system that we have in the schools, is that an add-on or is that a replacement for the water dispensers? How's it like?
Yeah, but Mr. English.
Like $1,500.
Yeah, Mr. English. I heard part of that, so hopefully I'm answering your question, but they are kits that go on, and so the CDC recommends that the water fountains aren't used, and so we're using these water bottle fillers in lieu of that, and so that people can bring their own water bottle and fill it and have it, and so those will be used in lieu of the water fountains.
Okay.
Now, are they going to be a sensor where you just kind of hold it up like some of our newer ones in the schools, or is there going to be a button or something you have to push? I mean, are these hands-free water fillers, or do you have to touch them somehow?
Well, I believe you have to put your water on there, and it kind of kind of push the back, almost like your refrigerator, where you have to kind of push it on there. And so, yeah.
Okay. So it's not the censored ones, it'll have the trigger.
Right.
Yeah.
So strategically, we're going to place them at different locations throughout the school, connect them up and everything.
Yeah, so there's going to be 50 of them total, and so we're looking at doing 4 in each elementary campus. We thought that could be one in each wing of the elementary school. The new middle schools that Mr. Martin is working on has them throughout the new middle school, so that's taken care of. And at the high school, we thought we'd have the remaining, 16 or so that go throughout the high school there.
Yeah.
Any additional questions on these items?
Yeah, well, this is Delia. No question. Just a little comment. I get it. My only concern is just between the cost of $300,000 and the potential, as we talked about a little bit earlier, of the double work of teachers. Financially, I mean, are we okay with this $300K for this additional equipment? I mean, I know we've been pushing on cost. Does this send us a little bit into the red, or how's this?
Well, also,
No,
I probably should let Mr. Anderson answer that, but I know this would kind of fall under hopefully a one-time cost versus a budget item that becomes recurring every year.
Yeah, and I would like,
we do have some play in this year's budget, but Mr. Anderson, do you want to elaborate on the financial impact of this?
Yeah, I would like Mr. Anderson to elaborate, but one thing I do want to mention, Mr. English, is I've spoken to a lot of our teachers through email, through text. They're very, very anxious. They're very worried about coming back to school. Obviously, our families are. It is a lot of money, $300,000, but and I'll let Mr. Anderson speak in a second, but my first priority, and I made it very clear that we've got to have things in place to where our teachers feel as safe as they can possibly feel. People are worried about this virus. It's spreading rapidly. We know the statistics. We know that the death rate's going down, all of that, but it doesn't stop the stress from the teachers. So I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide the teachers with the support that they need, that they feel they need. And same thing with our parents. So Mr. Anderson just mentioned that about the cost, it being a one-time cost.
Yeah, we'll probably split some of these costs between the operating budget and also the capital outlay budget. And Beth Euler has put together a budget amendment that will be brought to the board in July here. We couldn't get everything ready for this board meeting. The information did come quickly out of necessity, but we're okay financially, and we'll anticipate a surplus at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
And I did have one last question. Sorry, David, because I know part of the supplies, and I know what we're doing here, but we're not seeing, and this may go back to the other masks that's being provided by the state, but for like sanitizers, hand wipes, stuff like that, is that also included with what the state is sending us, or is that something that we're going to have to look at differently? Because I thought
Ms. Harding,
seeing it.
Yeah, Ms. Harding, the state will provide hand sanitizer as well, but we've already purchased some hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes. And then working with Mr. Anderson on our operational annual budget, we will have hand sanitizer on our side too. And so we'll have that taken care of as well.
Okay.
So hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. So all those in favor of approving these items as presented? Can see Leanna, yes. DeLeon, yes. Melissa, yes. Jason, yes. And Dan, yes. Our motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reeves. All right, now moving on, we do have our consent agenda, which is the staff development waiver.
Mr. Montemayor,
Yes.
are you a yes for the record?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm a yes for the record on those items.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented in our board book?
So moved.
That was Mr.
Dan.
Blackwood. Dan.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Who was the second? Leanna?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, all those in favor? All right, I see Jason. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through these. Dan, Melissa. DeLeon, are you a yes?
I'm a yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, and I'm a yes as well. So motion passes unanimously there as well. All right. So with that, in terms of, I'll start off with board comments. I mean, I know several of us have said this tonight, and I'll just echo it. So Superintendent Gallagher and your entire staff and cabinet, I mean, these times are stressful, and, the landscape changes every single day. So I do appreciate, everything you guys are doing to try and keep us on track for having, school start in some form or fashion, and also for keeping our students and teachers safe. It's a hard thing to balance. Sometimes I feel like it's trying to squeeze sand in your hand. So, I do appreciate that. Thank you for everything you're doing. And I know there'll be additional obstacles to overcome, and we'll just keep moving forward. So I don't know if anyone else has additional comments.
Just real quick, with all of this going on, I know there's a lot of comments about everything on social media. There has been a lot of positive feedback, along with the very concerned questions and things from teachers, from parents, people that I've spoken with personally that have reached out to me. So I just want to let you guys know they're frustrated, but they appreciate the communication, even though it does change, and it has changed a lot. And personally, with the calendar having to change, we were hoping for some consistency. I know that's what we were trying to do. There were way too many things changing at the end of the school year, and unfortunately, we couldn't maintain that consistency. So, but I did want everyone to know that there's a lot of positive feedback. They know you guys are working hard. They know that a lot of this is last minute. So even though there's some negative comments, there are a lot of positive feedback, and they are aware you guys are working a lot, and you're also working when you shouldn't be. And there's a lot of teachers out there that I know are doing things to try to prepare themselves, even though they're not technically supposed to be working right now. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for everything y'all are doing right now.
All right, anybody else? All right, Mr. Gallagher, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you, President Muchmauer. Just thank you to the board, especially obviously the support that you guys provide during this time. It is difficult, as Mrs. Harding just mentioned, but the support you provide our teachers and our administrators is truly appreciated. Thank you for really this last minute meeting. We know that you guys are busy, and we appreciate you giving up your time these couple hours tonight. I hope that we don't have any more called meetings, but with the way this is going, we very well may have some more called meetings in the future. But also just a big thank you to our team with Mr. Roberts, Dr. Mecca, really everybody on this Zoom meeting tonight. Also looking forward, and Ms. Harding, you're correct. I've had a lot of positive comments, mostly thanking me for my stance on the STAR test. They're excited about that. And I am working with other superintendents in the area, and I've spoken to Representative Patterson. We're looking to do another letter, a joint letter with multiple superintendents, Representative Patterson, some other local representatives, and have one letter that we're going to send to Governor Abbott about suspending STAR for this year. So, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that he chooses that and, makes that decision, because it's right for our students and our teachers. So that's it. But thank y'all so much for everything you guys do for the district.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:39 p.m.?
So moved.
Leanna? Second?
Second.
I think I heard Deleon. Deleon second. All those in favor? All right, none opposed. All right, thank you very much. We do adjourn at 6:39 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening, folks.